Good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear my voice because it tends to be very low. So, hello, everyone. Welcome to the IES at Loughborough University, the Institute of Advanced Studies, and welcome to those of you who are joining us online for the official launch of the International Center of Excellence in Informatics and Disaster Resilience. Thank you, first of all, to the IIS for hosting us. Today we have a packed and very intense schedule, so we're going to be on a quite fast-paced conversation today. Now let's move on to the actual reason why we're all here, which is the launch of our ICEIDR. As you know, as many of you know, the International the Integrated Research on The Integrated Research on Disaster Risk is a prestigious program co-chaired by the United Nations Office for Disaster Risk Reduction and International Science Research Council. So under the banner and within the umbrella of these institutions, the International Center of Excellence today pushes forward the research on disaster risk reduction by bringing together 6 prestigious international world-leading institutions on disaster research, disaster modeling, and resilience building. And the goal for this center is to push forward the international research on disaster risk reduction, build capacity, establish synergies, and generate new knowledge. Within this, today's agenda is trying to cover and to give an introduction on what's going to be the purpose and what everyone is bringing to the table. And in today's very packed agenda, we're going to hear from, aside from the institutional greetings, from each of the partner institutions about their contributions, their strengths, and their way they will contribute to the center. And to conclude the day, we're going to have a panel that will focus and will interrogate some of our most famous members on the future of disaster risk resilience after following the Sendai framework. So beyond the Sendai framework. There is just the participants and the speakers may have already received the email from us. We are on a very tight schedule because today we also have the launch of the UNESCO conference, which is not taking place here. So we have a hard stop at 12 o'clock. And we're going to ask you to stick to the timetable and to the schedule for that. So without further ado, I'm going to introduce the first speaker for the institutional greetings of today, which is our Pro-Vice Chancellor for Research and Innovation at Loughborough University. We have Dan Parsons, and who I'm welcoming here for us. So welcome, Dan.
Thank you. Well, morning, everyone. Just fabulous to see so many folks here for the launch and the discussions that you'll have around disaster risk and the impacts on lives, livelihoods, and societies around the world. The sorts of research that you'll talk about is really at the front and centre of the sorts of things as a university that we're really passionate about, and that's how our research makes a difference to people and societies. We're delighted that we're able to pull together a range of folks looking at these sorts of issues from interdisciplinary perspectives as well, which is right at the heart of what we're trying to accomplish as a broader university. The other part of where this really does play, and the fact that we're in probably my favourite place on campus in the Institute for Advanced Studies, is bringing those sorts of things together, but also with that big international dimension. The sorts of challenges that we're trying to face in terms of how people are impacted around the world by these sorts of disasters is really a global issue, and we're not going to solve it from a medium-sized university in the middle of the United Kingdom. It's about partnering with others, both nationally and internationally, where we can bring our expertise, our skill sets together in really effective ways to accomplish more than we would alone. So I'm delighted that Qiuhua and the team have really pushed this forward as an endeavour. I'm really excited by what's coming in terms of the piece here. Of course, as mentioned, we also have the UNESCO conference on campus as well. And again, the fusion of that kind of international dimension for me is really what we're trying to accomplish as a university and as part of our strategy as well. The final thing I want to say, and Qiuhua will have heard this before, and I'm sure many will. What's fantastic about these sorts of events are the connections and the new connections you're able to make. So my challenge to all of you is make a new connection through what's facilitated today. Go and talk to that person you've not met before. Find out what they're working on, and try and see whether or not you can take one action out of today, out of what you've heard, into future collaborations, into future work and future research. So I'll just leave you with a really warm welcome to Loughborough. It's always sunny. It's always green lawns and beautiful blue sky every time you come. So we look forward to welcoming you again in the future as well. But I hope the rest of the morning goes well, and I look forward to hearing from the team what comes out of the discussions that you'll have. So thank you very much.
And the next person on stage is Professor Saini Liang, as Executive Director of the IRDR in Beijing Normal University. The stage is yours.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Good morning. Very glad to be here. And I did my homework. Again, distinguished colleagues and more important, dear friends. I'm so happy to meet many of my old friends here today, this morning, for the launch of our ICoE. I think it's a tremendous honor for me to join your launch ceremony of IRDR ICoE for Informatics and Disaster Resilience at Loughborough University. I think this is a proud moment, not only for the Institute, but also for the global community dedicated to create more safer or resilient world. I don't want to mention this frequency and the intensity of the disaster, but I want to address on the cost of life and economics. Frankly speaking, it has reached an unsustainable level. That's why I think IRDR ICoEs are so important, so vital, because you are the agency that is really mobilizing science for reduction DRR practices and policies. And you are the engine for research, for solution provider, as a solution provider, and also capacity building. So I think you are the institute, or say the instrument that really translate science to policy and actions. So with this, I have huge expectations for our new ICoE at Loughborough University. Especially, I want to say the informatics for multi-hazard disaster risk. I think this is so uniquely positioned to address the complex challenge at our time. I don't want to address on the importance of digital innovations for DRR right now, because basically we have already witnessed the technological innovation to map hazard, to analyze vulnerability, and also to guide resilience investment. So critical. I was talking to Dina on the way to IIS. I think it is while we are utilizing digital innovations, I think it's our responsibility really to ask the right question so that we can serve the most vulnerable, not only the most connected. And also this brings us to the challenge of resilience itself, right? It's in your name, disaster resilience. Despite that, resilience is already at the cornerstone of international policies. Surprisingly, it's still a contested term. Because some researchers have already indicated that there is a disconnect between the top-down institutional resilience planning and the emergent grassroots resilience built by communities. We see there is a gap there. And I do believe that our ICEIDR, ICoE here, will help bridge this gap by using informatics really to translate the complex structure of governance with the complex reality of communities. And I think the complexity of the problem we face demand one more clear solution, which is international collaboration. I think that the name of the center already reflects this, bring together 6 world-leading institutions across the globe. I don't want to name all of them, but they're all, very, and I know that many, many agencies are representative are here. I think this is very unique strength that this ICoE is demonstrating. We understand disaster risk has no border, and we know that exchange knowledge, data, and the capacity across the world is non-negotiable. So through this ICoE, I think we're not only advanced research, but also help to build this global community for really to strengthen the influence of international research, and hopefully we can contribute to the global research agenda as well as international policies. So again, very sincere congratulations to our partners, and I think the journey ahead is challenging, but I think the potential is unlimited. Let's say one thing. Let's make together to ensure that informatics are shared by everybody. Again, thank you very much, and I'm looking forward to future collaboration with our ICoE and of course with Loughborough University. Thank you.
Qiuhua Liang, which is also from our UNESCO Chair in Informatics and Multi-Hazard Risk Reduction at Loughborough University for the institution.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's really my great pleasure to welcome you all here today. To share this important moment. Not only I think so many people in person here, also I think many more online. So I think this today is not only I think the launch of this event, but it's not only a launch event, but also I think mark an important beginning of an important international platform that bring together expertise, from different universities to really develop informatic innovation to help address disaster risk reduction challenges and then build a safer society ahead. Professor Yang mentioned, I think disaster have no borders. However, universities have borders because they sit in, I think different countries. So that's the reason we really need to, I think, create this kind of, international initiative. Bring people together, bring expertise together, and then address the grand challenge facing the society. Sorry. Okay, so I think this is I think everybody really familiar with. I think some of you already probably seen these pictures. I think now today's news do not lack I think this kind of disaster event and then photos like this, because I think for example. This is event happened in 2021 July, and then killed almost 200 people in Germany. I think just less than 1 week, I think a similar event happened in Zhengzhou in the middle part of China, killed nearly 400 people. So I think many more to name in here. So I think if you think this is already catastrophic, but that's not. I think worse can come, because nowadays we're talking about climate change, rapid urbanization, and also I think increasing concentrated I think population, and also interconnected infrastructure systems. I think once this kind of event happens, and we got more as well, and then that would not only create localized impact, they will create really interconnected systemic impact, dinner, or we've done a lot of work along this line. So for that reason, I think we are facing a challenge like this one. Again, there's anything happen in a city like this, and then that would not only impact the spot where it happens. It's really interconnected, into I think connected to every sector, every aspect of the city. So for that reason, the current approach, to deal with this kind of challenge is no longer effective, because it's most of them is based on silo expertise. For example, I'm mainly work on water-related disaster, flooding, but I really seldom talk to people in, for example, seismic engineering. I know the common knowledge, but I'm not really into depth to communicate with them in a deep science. And also, we're facing fragmented data because, I think different government agencies, different, I think even scientists, we don't share data, at least not a lot, right? So I think, and also I think a lot of the solution or strategy we develop is, has a specific. For example, when we develop, flood risk management, we don't really consider landslide, we don't consider tsunami, we don't consider, for example, pollution. Most of the case, not. So for that reason, this kind of solution may not again effective, for this kind of connected world. So there's a lot more, I think, a kind of challenge ahead. For example, the scientific knowledge and then the information that's not really like effectively translated into policy and decision making. So I think again we're facing a lot of this kind of events. And then so now for me, I think the disaster resilience is no longer a kind of I think again single discipline challenge, not an engineering challenge, but rather it's a kind of data information challenge, but how that communicate effectively to different sectors to create effective solution as well. So that becoming a kind of whole system challenge. That's what we say. So obviously dealing with this is challenging. We all know that because our world is random. Even making decisions, for example, when the flooding happening outside, I think I'm sure different people inside this room will make different decisions. For example, if I'm silly enough, I'm going to jump into the water, say I can swim. But people may go to the higher ground. So I think people again making decisions random, and also I think the whole society connected, and then again forming this kind of complicating system risk. So for that reason, we don't really have an effective tool to describe that, model that, and then inform solution again and or strategy. Luckily, we are in a exciting time. Now we have advanced technology coming out every day. So imagine 2 years ago, when we have the ChatGPT, it's 2 years, 3 years ago, and then everything's new, but now it's becoming everybody's daily life. So I think this kind of technology change and create a lot of opportunity in terms of getting data, getting the AI algorithm, and then coupled with the unprecedented computation power, and that make us in a time we can really make use of this kind of technology to help us again better understand, better predict, or better forecast disaster, and then to inform decision. So yeah, so that's an exciting time. So that's where ICEIDR coming from. So ICEIDR, I think again it's kind of sponsored by IRDR. So IRDR recognized this importance of this, I think informatics, or digital future, for disaster reduction. So for that reason, they approve, our ICEIDR as one of their 17, I think 17, 18, 17 international center of excellence. So we're really proud of that. So I think that would, put up in a great, a platform, and then to do something, influential, not only, in Loughborough University, but again, it's nationally, globally. So I think, the mission is that, really we're trying to build a recognized hub, advancing DRR, disaster risk reduction, through digital innovation, international collaboration, and also capacity development, plus, again, influence policy. So I think we have a 4, kind of key objectives, ranging from the research excellence, 5 of them, and then change that into innovative solutions, and then also that need to come with international collaboration, capacity development, and also again going down into the impact on society and also policy, things like that. So we have a range of this kind of objectives. So ICEIDR is not only Loughborough. So ICEIDR, it's a home for 6 equal partners across the world. Yeah, again, because this is the kind of huge, complex challenge. So that we can't really solve it only in Loughborough. I'm sorry to say that. I know we try to, but we can't really do that. So for that reason, we team up with 6, I think, including ourselves, world-leading institutions, including Loughborough University, Delft, and then Chinese Academy of Science, and then DPRI in Kyoto, and then I think RWTH Aachen University and Zhengzhou University in China, so that to combine different expertise again, and then to try to really bring people together, bring partnership together, bring expertise together, and then to really make the best use of digital technology, so that you create better solution, or better strategy for disaster risk reduction. So this would be the range of things we're going to, I think, undertake, under this umbrella. Yeah, I know the time, so I think, yeah, so I don't really have time, again, to go through in detail, but, I think we try to, again, cover, from advanced research, down to impact, or policy, influencing policy. That would need help, from UNESCO, I think, IRDR, a range of, partners in here. So looking ahead, so again, this is an exciting moment. Again, I hope this is the kind of beginning of an important international platform that can bring people together. Not only the 6 world-leading, I think, like I said, university, or organization, but widely, I think, across the world, different, I think, researchers, practitioners, and policymakers, and so on, because we again addressing a complex, I think challenge. We need to work together, not only academic, but also different sectors. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Qiuhua. And now we move on to the organizational presentation. So we start this member spotlight. Professor Liang again.
So I think in here, so like, again, I think ICEIDR, it's a partnership of 6 organizations. So I think I try to present this in afternoon, but I think now I bring it to you here because of technical issue of the Chinese Academy of Science side. So Loughborough University. So we not only, I think, contribute to ICEIDR as a equal partner, but trying to also bring in our expertise in digital innovation and then international leadership and so on and so on. So for those who do not really like, I think familiar, with Loughborough, but actually we are quite famous, right? We are in the Midland of England. We call ourselves, can also call ourselves MIT, Midland Institute of Technology, right? Yeah. Anyway, just joking. So I think if you don't know the detail of Loughborough, I think Loughborough it's a research intense university in the UK, and then we constantly rank in the top 10 in the UK, and then in all of these league tables. And also, I think that's another example is we won 8 Queen Elizabeth prizes. I think only second to Oxford, if I remember correctly. So I think these are highly prestigious, I think award, I think offered to universities. As example, I think in the School of Architecture, Building and Civil Engineering, ABCA, where I'm sitting and also I think contributing largely to this center. And then in the last rep, we 96% of research, rated as an international leading or world leading. And then we also, overall, we rank second in the UK, only second to Cambridge. So I think that's showing, I think a kind of, research, we are doing here in Loughborough as an example. And then Loughborough has internationally recognized strength in a number of fields. In here, I only list those related to, again, the center, for example, in informatics, disaster risk reduction, climate resilience, and so on. And then spanning from the fundamental development and then to the real-world applications, including, again, a range of things we're doing in here. I don't have time to go down into details. And then the work we're doing here also aligned with the university strategy. I think closely related to 2 strategic themes, which is climate change and net zero, vibrant, inclusive communities, and so on. So I think that means, I think our research really like, I think as a part of the important part of the university family. And then here I show a few examples of this. So I think, again, I don't have time to go down into detail. For example, we have this kind of, award-winning flood model developed by my team and then also other colleagues. So we call it HiPIMS, high performance integrated hydrodynamic modeling systems. So I think that's I think it's the world's first this kind of hydrodynamic model which applied to simulate flooding process from rainfall down to inundation in meter level across city or catchment of thousands of square kilometers. So and also later on we work with Metrovis and then turned it into real-time forecasting system. So we know that I think, for example, hazard does not really happen always a single hazard. So for example, rainfall can induce landslide and then debris flow and then coupled with flooding. So that's the reason we also developed the model. Oops, sorry about that. And then to simulate this kind of cascading, hazard chain. So I think in here, And also, probably we all familiar with, I think when the flash flood happened, for example, and then that would bring up, cars and trees and other, floating debris. So I think that would create, more impact, on buildings and things like that. So we also, I think, use the model and then to simulate this kind of floating debris and a range of other, activities like human activities here. So it's a video here, but it's not working. So I think because, again, we're talking about a couple human natural system. So I think the disaster risk will not be accurate if we don't consider the human angles. So for that reason, we also develop models to simulate individual behavior, transport, I think basically to mimic the society. And then, again, disaster have no border. So I think for that reason, we also, I think, together working with accreditation, my colleagues in here, and then apply this kind of technology, to the developing world. For example, this is applying the model and then coupled with the open data to really work on a detailed risk assessment of glacier lake outburst flood in Nepal. So I think that's, approach adopted by the government and then to standardize, the approach locally. So and then and also I think other example, for example, I think this is a project led by Professor Dan Parsons, our PVC, and then we call it Evil Flood. It's a multi-million I think project to look at the global I think flooding problem. Currently I think the river and then system we assume is a static when we assess the risk. However, I think that change due to human interaction, sediment transport and so on. So the team and then to develop models and then knowledge and then to really like put it into practice and then so that we can more accurately assess the risk. So this is I see that the Center of Excellence. So I think it's not only I think on its own, and it's sitting in actually again the university family. So I think now. I think we probably, I think we haven't really formally announced it yet, but I think we have a plan and then to set up an issue of digital futures. So I think that would, provide a kind of, I see that would provide, important pillar and then to, as part of this kind of, I think a future, I think forward-looking or future-looking, I think institute, so that I think bringing more expertise across the university and then to really help address this challenge in here. So. Apart from the research, we also, contribute, to the center. I think, with our international leadership as well. So, for example, I myself and my team holding a UNESCO chair here in Loughborough in Informatics and Multi-Hazard Risk Reduction, and also, I think as part of that, we created a global partnership for smart informatics and multi-hazard reduction. So now have over 150 or 160, I think, institute members across the world already. So I think linking people together to discuss this important, I think, issue. And also, we have a NERC-funded, I think, a doctor training program, IWIS, and then to train the next generation of leaders, I think, along this line as well. And then now I think we also have IRDR and then supporting, I think our, research in here and activities. So I think we're bringing also, again, all of this leadership, to make the center, flies. And then this, again, to list, I think in detail, how we can really contribute to, every key objectives of this center. Again, I don't have time to go, any, further in detail. So basically, again, looking ahead, so this is an important moment. We're creating an important global kind of partnership so that bring people together. I hope, I think that this will create opportunity to working with you all, I think here, in person and also online, so that, bring, again, people together to address the important social challenges. Thank you.
So we're moving to the next presenter at the moment, Professor Holger Schüttrumpf from the Institute of Hydraulic Engineering and Water Resources Management at Aachen University.
Okay, so welcome again. And thank you very much for inviting me here to give a short presentation on the institutional strengths and contributions to the new center. And here again, congratulations to you for being successful in the application here for this center, establishing this center. And I'm really looking forward for, a very interesting exchange of knowledge, exchange of expertise, but for sure also exchange of stuff. So I would like to speak a little bit about what happened here in 2021, because this is maybe the background why we do this. Why do we need a center of for disaster resilience? Because we can learn quite a lot from disasters. And the photos you can see here, these are photos I made after the 2021 event here in Germany, in the Ahr Valley, and also in regions here in North Rhine-Westphalia. And here in Aachen, where I am at Aachen University, we have been really in the center of the disaster. So I have been out in the field many, many times. So I would say for weeks and months during the event. And so I can really tell you quite a lot about what happens during a disaster and what are the consequences of a disaster and the lessons learned from a disaster. And I think this is something, beside our technical and scientific expertise, this is something how we can contribute to the center. Maybe you can go to the next slide, which is subscribed by flood documentation of IWW. So here you see a little bit the region. So here there is a small example, a small figure showing the precipitation event. And yeah, the event occurred in the triangle between Netherlands, Belgium, and Germany. And Aachen is really situated at this triangle. So from my office, for example, I can see the Dutch border and I can see also the Belgian border. And we have been out, and that is a larger figure here on A, to monitor what happened after the disaster. And yeah, we made drone surveys. We took samples of sediments. We analyzed damages of buildings, bridges, infrastructure. And that is, let's say, the basis for what we do in science and research at the moment. Maybe we go to the third slide here. And the documentation we did is quite, yeah, extensive. So you see here what we did. So for example, we compared different areas. We have areas with dams and without dams. So some areas were protected by dams and other areas were not protected by dams. So what we did is we analyzed the performance of the dams. Performance regarding functionality of dams, but also regarding safety of dams. Because the event, that was an event with a return interval of more than 10,000 years. So that was more or less a design event for these dams. We also analyzed areas with and without recultivation. And we found out that areas where we had recultivation of our rivers performed much better than other areas. We analyzed the event in the mountain areas as well as in the lowland areas. So we were able to analyze different types of flood events. So we had this flash flood event in the mountain area. We had a normal, let's say, river flooding in the low-lying areas. And even we had some urban flooding. We have a focus on the damage to critical infrastructures. So, for example, hospitals, police stations, fire departments, kindergartens and schools, but also other critical and sensile infrastructures. We analyzed damages of other infrastructures. So, for example, roads and railways, sewer systems, electricity supply, gas supply, telecommunication, because what happened is everything was destroyed. So the first time I went, for example, to the Ahr Valley, it was quite difficult because all the roads were completely destroyed and I had to go from the hill down through the forest to the valley and to the affected areas. We analyzed damages to buildings because maybe I don't know if you have ever seen a real flood event. It's not only water. It's a combination of water, mud, oil, but also debris. And that is affecting all our buildings. And then we were able to analyze the different types of damages. And we found, for example, many damages, not only due to, let's say, the flow velocities and the water depths, but also we found also quite a lot of impacts by oil released from the heatings. Then clogging of the bridges was a topic. We have never seen such clogging of bridges before. And we were able to attribute something like 2.5 meters more water depths only due to the question of the buildings, the bridges. Just to have an idea, what does it mean, 2.5 meters? That is 1 floor more. So if you are safe in the first floor, you weren't safe in the first floor during this event, just due to the clogging of the bridges. We analyzed morphodynamic processes. So the rivers completely changed the river course. We found erosion, sedimentation, and also contamination due to heavy metals in the water. And for sure, what was also interesting is the question of personal damages, physical and psychical damages. I spoke with many persons who lost really everything, and everything means everything. And that is also something which is quite interesting. So what we have now is we have a lot of data, we have a lot of information, we did a lot of research, and that is something how we can contribute to this Center of Excellence. Here just an overview of some of the topics. For sure, not all of the topics. If you are interested to get more information about this flood event and what we did until last year, I can recommend you the paper we have written here in the Journal of Flood Risk Management, which is something like a kind of overview paper. So the flood event in July 2021 in Europe, observations, conclusions, and challenges. And here just some examples. So damage, clogging, collapsing of bridges and structural recommendations. We worked on special planning because that is also important to combine different expertise, not only people with a good knowledge and expertise in flood risk management, but also people in spatial risk management. We analyzed different types of technical and natural retention potentials. Even I have not the time to go here more in detail. We analyzed the social aspects. That is also something which is very interesting. And often I have the impression, especially for an engineer, this has not such a priority. But I can tell you after this event, this has a priority. And I think we have to discuss more also the social aspects and maybe the impacts of the technical aspects on the social aspects. So last slide, conclusions. So what we can and how we can contribute is the Institute of Hydraulic Engineering of Aachen University combines scientific expertise in flood risk management and hydraulic engineering with experience and the lessons learned from the flood disaster in 2021, which was not only a local flood event, a normal flood event, but with a flood event with a return interval of more than 10,000 years, which gives us a unique situation to contribute to future research to prevent flood disasters. And that's why I'm very happy that I'm able here to contribute to this new International Center of Excellence on Informatics and Disaster Resilience. Thank you very much for attending my short presentation.
Thank you so much. And now, with the similar approach, Professor Tiziana Rossetto from Delft University of Technology, Head of Hydraulic Engineering Department.
Thank you very much for this invitation, Qiuhua and everybody else of the team at the ICEIDR. We are very honored to be partners in this new initiative, and we have been discussing over the past few years how we might collaborate better. So thank you very much for creating this opportunity and actually widening it to a larger international sphere. So we're very happy to be part of that. I want to give you a small presentation about, first, starting with TU Delft. For those who don't know, we are the Delft University of Technology. Delft is a small town in the south of the Netherlands, so not far from the border with Belgium. And we were founded in 1842 as a Royal Academy for the Education of Civil Engineers. Since then, the university has grown and now contains 8 faculties, of which Civil Environment and Geoscience, Civil Engineering and Geoscience is one of the faculties, with over 7,500 employees, 26,500 students, and about 3,500 PhDs. Currently, we're with a university ranking of 48, But as we are a technical university, we have a higher ranking in engineering and technology. And I'm very pleased to say that civil engineering has a ranking of 5th worldwide. That's a little picture of our building, which is the faculty building. And the Faculty of Civil Engineering and Geosciences also contains 7 departments. Each department is extremely large, and I'll tell you a little bit about my department, hydraulic engineering, next. But what I want to focus on the slide is the figure that you see on the right, which shows the world, essentially, and underneath we have written understand, intervene, and improve. And this is part of the vision of the Faculty of Civil Engineering and Geosciences. We aim to understand the natural, living, and built environment, intervene, and improve. And so the work that we do spans from very fundamental work at the level of, the physics of events and natural phenomena, to actually then working on how do we make a change, how do we actually intervene, and how do we improve. And when I talk about my department on the next slide, hydraulic engineering is an example of this. And when people say, what does the hydraulic engineering department at TU Delft do? Well, I answer quite simply, we keep the Netherlands dry and safe. So without this department, I think much of the hydraulic infrastructure that allows the Netherlands to be above water wouldn't exist, or at least wouldn't be as safe as it is. Our department has around 54 academic staff members, 150 PhD students, and around 35 million euro a year in research projects. So we are a large department of the size that many other civil engineering departments around the world would be. But we're just hydraulic engineering. We strongly collaborate with industry. There are large industries around the campus or near the campus, and we have several joint appointments with different companies. We work with the national water authorities, and we have a very strong presence in EU projects. If we sort of summarize in one picture some of the things that we do, we work on 4 different main research themes: the dynamics of marine and inland water systems, sustainable infrastructure and nature-based solutions, climate adaptation and flood risk management, and renewable energy in the marine environment, which includes both wave energy as well as offshore wind. And we use approaches that span physical modeling, prototype evaluation, numerical modeling, field observation, and of course, we will conduct research and education. We do have a rather large laboratory in the department, but we also conduct a lot of field work. And indeed, for those of you who might have heard of the sand mortar, this is a part of the beach offshore of sort of near The Hague, which we monitor and have been monitoring for decades, looking at dune development and conducting prototype level experiments. So it really is a fantastic department to be working in. I started here a year ago, and I keep learning about fantastic and interesting projects. But I thought I'd highlight a couple of research areas that are relevant to the ICEIDR. And one of this is the use of, or the development of risk-based design and assessment, which has been a core part of the TU Delft method for many years. This approach essentially uses reliability-based or probability-based methods to look at things like levees, storm surge barriers, flood defenses, infrastructure, asset management, buildings, amongst others. And this is all to inform decision-making and hydraulic engineering practice, and which we do by involving industry and government. And in fact, a strong impact that the department has had is that it's actually affected the Netherlands flood safety standards, which now have shifted from being more deterministic to probabilistic design level. So we're quite proud of that. Of relevance also to the presentation by my previous colleague, which is on the next slide, is that we also look at natural hazards. Of course, flooding is one of those hazards, but more and more looking at compounding flooding. And we heard this also in Professor Liang's presentation, looking at things like rainfall combined with coastal flooding, sea level rise and storm surge, coastal surge and river flooding, which all combine together to have more extreme events. So we're looking at a little bit at the hazard side of things, but we also focus more and more on the vulnerability of the built environment to multiple hazards. And here the work that we conduct actually extends a lot further to looking at, for example, hazards like earthquake and tsunamis, earthquakes and floods and debris, and a number of different types of infrastructure like bridges, but also offshore wind farms is one of the areas that we work on. And we try and then improve, as per the faculty vision, through the use of nature-based solutions or hybrid solutions. And an example of a multi-hazard event that we've just recently investigated is we've returned from the field for a joint mission with UCL to Hatay in Turkey, which was an area that was affected in 2023 by 2 major earthquakes, and now has also in May this year had flooding. And we went there to investigate what happens, and with these 2, it's a really multi-hazard event. So we've been looking at that. So look out for our observations, which are yet to come out, because we've just returned from the field about a week ago. So the final slide, really, or before the final slide, we have assembled a little team of people to be people who would be willing to contribute to the ICEIDR, and that cover a range of different fields, from probabilistic design and reliability to extreme rainfall, to hydraulic structures and infrastructure, to also system vulnerability, and myself with physical vulnerability of buildings and infrastructure. And this is just a small component from my department, but we have skills that span across the different parts of civil engineering, including also geomatics, which is very strong and in which there's expertise in looking at different disasters. So we bring people, we bring expertise, and we want to work together, my last slide, to build a more resilient world to multiple hazards. So this is a ChatGPT derived figure, which, however, was extremely good in showing some of our strengths as a department and how they relate to resilience, building resilience against multiple natural hazards. So thank you all for your attention, and I really look forward to our collaboration.
Thank you so much. Now we're going back to the first speaker. Finally, we're managing to have them on board, but we have Professor Wang from the Chinese Academy of Science and UNESCO Chair for Mountain Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience.
Okay, good morning and good afternoon, everyone. My name is Wang. I come from the Center for Natural Hazard Research. So firstly, please allow me to convey Professor Cui Peng's apologies. He has an urgent meeting at the Ministry of Water Resources, so unfortunately he is unable to join us today. Let me give a brief of our institute and our center. So the Center for Natural Hazard Research is part of the Institute of Geographic Science and Natural Resources Research, Chinese Academy of Science. So our institute currently have nearly 3,000 staff members and students. It is also home to 16 academics. In addition, more than 200 researchers have received major national and international talent awards in our institute. So recently, in recent years, our institute have achieved excellent progress in international academic influence. Next. Within the institute, our Center for Natural Hazard Research focused mainly on 4 areas: disaster geography, disaster motioniness and disaster risk and great disaster mitigation. So next, our research is supported by a well-established set of facilities operated by our center itself, including indoor laboratory in Beijing and field observation network in Longxi catchment. Is in Sichuan province, and next. A larger scale field experiment base in Lingzhi on the southeast Tibetan Plateau. At the same time, we have established a joint and key laboratory with other university and institute and government. So all of these provide a strong platform for our research. Next for the people and research team. Our center now is led by Professor Cui and bringing together scholars from a wide range of disciplines, including hydrology, geomorphology, and meteorology, and so on. And next, the 7 researchers shown in here will play an active role in the ICEIDR future development. Next. In recent years, our center has been supported by a number of merger research and survival-oriented projects, such like in the next slides, this slides. So next, regarding to the project, I would like to highlight 2 achievements of our recent work. Next. As we all know, the climate change, especially the climate warming, is leading to an increased threat for the global disaster risk. And firstly, the climate change is modifying mountain hazard environment. It could increase water and moisture supply, and it also take more unstable material source, and it could provide stronger energy and dynamic conditions, and stronger coupling of hazard drivers. So it finally makes the hazard-proven environment is becoming more dangerous. Next. And more important, climate change stress interaction among the multi spheres and reshapes the disaster evaluation. So as a result, hazards are becoming more intense and frequent, long-lasting, widespread, and difficult to predict. Next. And it can also turn as isolate event into cascading disaster chain. So this cascading process amplifies regional and systematic risk. So the disaster research must move beyond the single hazards and focus on their interactions, transitions, and wild impacts. Okay, next. And the second achievement is about our early warning system. Next, our system includes 5 conducted models, an environment database, weather forecasting, hydrological modeling, hazard process simulation, and risk warning. Next. The model strength is about its full process simulation. Instead of relying on only on rainfall thresholds, it follows the full hazard chain. Next, 4 important those different models are integrated into one framework, real-time weather forecast driven hydrological and slope field models, and which then supported hazard simulation and dynamic risk analysis and warning. So next, there is a video. In this slide, in here you can see our system has also been development into a real-time numerical simulation and monitoring platform. Next. Compared with other approaches, this system moves from the threshold-based warning into process-based forecasting, and from hazard prediction to risk forecasting. So it can provide more accurate location and generate risk information without no hazard seeds. Next. Since 2022, our system has been applied in many regions, and it has ensured successful several debris flow warning and flash flood warning. So it is now helping protect tens of thousands of people from the disaster. Okay, next. Looking ahead, we believe our center can contribute to ICEIDR in five main ways. Next, first, we can strengthen academic exchange through visit, conference, seminars, and workshops. And second, we can development collaborative research on different topics. And our center already have experience in international cooperation through joint laboratory and collaborative project with other countries. With other countries. And next, third, we can promote joint graduate training. And fourth, we are willing to share our research platform, including our field observations. And finally, we hope to work with ICEIDR members to development international research programs. Because recently Professor Cui led an international program on resilience for emerging disaster risk. This project addressed the complex and cascading risk intensified by climate change and human activities. So we warmly invited ICEIDR members to join this program. Okay, that's all. We are looking forward to working close with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And now the final member spotlight of the day, which is from Zhengzhou University. We have Professor Hongyuan Fang, hopefully they're online, the Dean of School of Water Conservancy and Transportation.
Yeah, so I'm Yifei Zong, so assistant professor at Zhengzhou University. So unfortunately, our dean, Professor Hongyuan Fang, he's not there, so I'm on his behalf. So let's start. So dear colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, good morning. So today we gather to witness the official launch of the ICEIDR. So on behalf of the School of Water Conservancy and Transportation at Zhengzhou University, I wish to extend my most sincere gratitude to the IRDR International Program, to Loughborough University as a host, and to all of our partners, the Chinese Academy of Science, Delft University of Technology, Aachen University, and Kyoto University. So the establishment of this center marks a new starting point for interdisciplinary disaster risk reduction. It embodies a shared conviction that the science of informatics can empower risk governance, that the pathway from research to policy can be opened, and that together we can advance the implementation of the standard framework for disaster risk reduction and the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals. So next slide, please. So first of all, please allow me to briefly introduce our institution. Zhengzhou University is a national university under Chinese Project 211 and double first class initiatives, placing it in the top tier of the country's higher education system. The university ranks number 203 in the US News Best Global University and has established partnerships with over 200 university and research institutions across 53 countries and regions. And next slide, please. So our School of Water Conservancy and Transportation was originally founded in 1959. Over 6 decades, it has grown into a distinctive academic community where multiple research fields converge. So our school now consists of 5 research institutes: the Underground Engineering, Disaster Prevention and Control Research Institute, the Water Safety and Water Resources Regulation Research Institute, the Hydrology and Hydroenvironment Research Institute, the Hydraulic Structures and Materials Research Institute, the Road and Bridge Engineering Research Institute. Today, our school is home to more than 260 faculty and staff, including 4 academians of the Chinese Academy of Science and the Chinese Academy of Engineering, and over 20 national level talents. We also host 2 advanced research platforms. So next slide, please. So this includes the STK Laboratory of Tunnel Boring Machine, Intelligent Operation and Maintenance, and the Yellow River Laboratory. In the meantime, we also have access to valuable resources from the Chinese National Computing Platform in Zhengzhou University. So over the past 5 years, we have led or participated in more than 100 national level research projects, and our work has been recognized with 8 national science and technology awards. For ICEIDR, so our core team spans senior, mid-career, and early career researchers. So myself, which is Professor Hongyuan Fang, so is an expert on intelligent, non-destructive testing of underground pipe networks and disaster prevention. Professor Liang specializes in urban flood disaster warning and active prevention. So me focus on computational hydrodynamics and AI-driven scientific computing. So we have a solid foundation for deep engagement in the center's joint research and scholar exchange. So as ancient Chinese saying goes, when the Yellow River is tamed, the land enjoys peace. So indeed, the Yellow River, known as the Mother River of China, is one of the world's most complex and sediment-laden great rivers. Within its basin, extreme floods, urban inundation, and reservoir risk pose enormous challenges. But it also provides a unique real-world setting for advancing research on multi-hazard disaster risk reduction. So building on these settings and decades of hands-on practice, our research features 3 highlight directions: infrastructure, safety, and non-destructive testing, flood risk management and river basin system resilience, engineering composite materials, and structure performance enhancement. So next slide, please. So rather than walking through each direction, let me simply share a few examples of what our research has delivered. So most importantly, we develop a complete suite of technologies for drainage pipe network disaster prevention and translate rehabilitation. So from intelligent defect detection to minimally invasive repair. So these technologies play a critical role in emergency recovery after the Zhengzhou's 720 and Hebei 731 extreme rainstorms, and have been deployed in more than 100 cities nationwide, including Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. And this was recently recognized with the 2nd prize of Chinese National Science and Technology Progress Award. And also to address low probability with high consequence dam failure events, So we developed an interval-based dam break flow loss assessment model, quantifying life, economic, and environmental losses and deep uncertainty. This work has been incorporated into an official bulletin of the International Commission on Large Dams, providing a unifying international standard for dam break consequence assessment. We are also actively developing digital twins for urban campus scale flood under the supervision of Professor Qiuhua Liang. So looking towards the action plan for the center, especially the phase 2 from 2026 to 2030. Next slide, please. Our school will advance the center's development through 3 stages. So first, it's a platform building stage. So we will working with our 6 partners to refine the center's governance structure and secretariat operations. So we will sign cooperation agreement and initiate preparations for the first round of joint workshops and collaborative funding applications. And in parallel, we will begin to connect our research with each other's platforms, such as applying Loughborough University's HiPIMS model to real-world scenarios and case analysis from the Yellow River Basin. Our first cohort of jointly supervised doctoral students will also commence during this phase, ideally. So second, in the project implementation stage, so our commitment will move into routine operation. We will normalize scholar-student exchange, dual supervisor doctoral training, and two-way visiting fellowships for early career researchers. Building on this, we will work with all partners to grow the center's early career researcher network into a genuinely global community with regular online seminars, joint publications, and working groups, so that young researchers are not only participants in the center, but co-creators of its agenda. We will also host annual hands-on training program in Zhengzhou for engineers and practitioners, but hopefully this with priority places for participants from low-income and middle-income countries. In the outreach and impact stage, we will consolidate these efforts into global public goods. We will deliver a standardized case library built from our post-disaster investigations, including the Zhengzhou 720 extreme rainstorm. We will document not only the hazards, but what worked and what failed in emergency response. We will release selected tools and models as open sources and establish demonstration projects in the Yellow River Basin, and refine the center's integrated technologies and real operating conditions. Building on this, we will work with all partners to translate the center's findings into shared technical guidelines and best practice references, and working with relevant United Nations agencies contribute to policy guidance documents and promote the application of center's technologies and models worldwide. Throughout, we will keep investing in the center's early career researcher network and ensuring by 2030, a new generation of disaster resilient scientists is ready to present, connect, and lead. So ladies and gentlemen, so building resilient cities and river basins is a task that no single country can accomplish alone. ICEIDR builds a bridge that is truly one of a kind. It connects data and models with frontline emergency decision-making, linking the laboratory theory with engineering sites, and bringing together frontiers of disaster risk reduction from different institutions. Going forward, our school will engage with all of you in an open, pragmatic, and long-term spirit of deep collaboration, using informatics to empower global multi-hazard risk governance and working together to build a safer and more resilient world for all. In closing, I wish the launch ceremony of ICEIDR a complete success, and I wish every expert and colleague the very best in your work. Thank you, guys. That's it.
Very much. So we've completed the the presentations for the morning. We're going to move on to the panel.
Welcome back to the final session of the launch of the center. I'm Professor Ksenia Chmutina. I'm director of the Institute of Advanced Studies, also associate vice chancellor for Impact and Internationalization, and in my spare time, a professor of disaster studies at the School of Architecture, Building and Civil Engineering, together with Qiuhua and Delante. And it's my absolute pleasure to chair this panel discussion today. So I've got a fantastic panel. I will do very short introductions. because I would like us to really kind of get going into the discussion about community. And the central focus of this panel is for us to discuss the role of community in shaping the next global agenda for disaster risk reduction and sustainable development. And our panelists today have very different but really exciting experience of working with communities in different geographical settings. So I'll do very brief introductions. Professor Tiziana is my colleague, professor of disaster risk and climate resilience here at Loughborough University, bringing over 2 decades of research experience to intersection of disaster risk reduction and the built environment. Professor Saini, you've heard from her already today, is the executive director of the Integrated Research on Disaster Risk. She's a professor at Beijing Normal University and serves as the co-chair of UNESCO Chair of Mountain Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience. Professor Dina Dayala is the UNESCO Chair of Disaster Risk Reduction and Resilience Engineering at UCL. She's a fellow of the Institution of Civil Engineering and a professor of structural engineering and co-director of the UCL Epicenter and the Strength Laboratory at UCL here East. And last but not least, Professor David Hanna is a Deputy Pro-Vice Chancellor for Sustainability. He's a Professor of Hydrology and UNESCO Chair in Water Science and Director of the Birmingham Institute of Sustainability and Climate Action at the University of Birmingham. And I thought I have the longest title. You win. Welcome, and thank you so much for joining the panel today. Well, I'd like to start with a question to all of you, and kind of the obvious question given the focus of the panel. So in your opinion, how can the community shape the next global agenda for disaster risk reduction and sustainable development? Dina, if I may start with you.
So from an engineering point of view, I think that we largely need to rethink both urbanization and infrastructure development here. The construction industry accounts for more than 1/3 of energy and carbon energy emission, of which are more or less half are in the use of the built environment, and the other are in the delivery of it through new build. So the first thing is to completely switch new build to natural material, stone, timber, earth, bamboo. We need to forget about steel, we need to forget about concrete, and most importantly, we need to forget about glass. Because if we want to reduce greenhouse emissions. If we think about the most modest level of temperature increase forecast, 2.5, this will increase 14 times the number of heat waves anywhere in the world that we should expect with respect to pre-industrial conditions. The heat wave will be longer and will be higher in temperature over the normal tolerance of people. If we think about flooding, then each further degree we have in temperature creates 7% more moisture in the atmosphere, and probably you are all familiar with these figures. That means more water, faster water cycle, more days of extreme rains, more flash floods, more river floods. How do we really mitigate that? We really need to stop traveling. We need to get our idea to do the legworks. We need to embrace the possibility of virtual life together and really rethink the way that we are building. Architecture should be very different, should be passive as much as possible, should shelter us from heat waves and flood, but at the same time should be resilient to windstorms and earthquakes. And the way in which we live and connect should be different. In order to do this, we need substantial reconsideration of our economic and political models, and therefore very financial models, and with a strong reconsideration of our governance.
Thank you. Thank you, Dina. Saini, let me ask you the same question. So how can community shape the future agenda for DRI?
Well, I want to address on this integrated approach, basically synergy. Um, of course, for DRR, we have our global strategy standard framework, and also at the same time we have SDG. But actually, I see huge potential with the synergy of DRR with SDG. Well, just as Dina just mentioned, a DRR work cannot exist by itself. It must be integrated into the development, socially, economically, environmentally. So I see huge potential because I'm very much interested in the introduction this morning. I see the different research institutes, they are contributing different perspectives and research outcome there. But I really want to dig into the synergy in this research outcome. I want to see how the DRR knowledge or say the approach is embedded into, for example, like ecological protection, into the community development and also economic development. I think this synergy will provide us with more possibility for the post 2030. Well, we all know that SDG is encountering difficulty, right? This, if you look at the assessment report. But I kind of still believing that that's a direction. And if we want to make the next agenda more successful, I think synergy is the key. So try to rethink DRR, rethink development in a more integrated approach. Try to find the venue that can create multilateral benefits.
Thank you. Yeah, great. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Delante, what do you think?
Thanks, Ksenia. I want to actually address this from the point of view of what we have achieved through Sendai framework. I was fortunate enough to be part of the drafting process back in 2015. So we have achieved some, not all, during the period since 2015. But I want to propose the direction beyond 2030 based on the gaps. So of course, at the minute I'm actually working on identifying the high level gaps as part of the UNDRR stack, but I want to highlight 4 key points here. Again, the first one is, I suppose there need to be a shift from hazard analysis to interconnected systemic risk. Of course, you highlighted that as part of one of the key areas of the key components of the center. So that is actually really, really important, because as we all know, the traditional DRR research actually often silos risk by hazard type, for example, but we really need to get rid of that. And we need to start working on systematic and the cascading risk. That is actually not very visible in the current Sendai. So in moving forward, I put forward that aspect as one of the key. And the second point is actually that there's a very high level need to unpack the DRR sustainability and the peace nexus. At the minute, of course, conflicts is very much part of the DRR agenda, but having said that, a lot of us actually research on that as a separate entity, and also some of us actually do not want to actually consider that purely because of the geopolitical tension and so on and so forth. But having said that, incorporating aspects relating to conflicts within the DRR agenda is really, really important. I would really like to see that as part of the post-2030 agenda very, very strongly. And the third point I want to highlight is actually there's a need to actually champion the theory of change for the post-2030 agenda, rather than actually getting the practitioners and defining what the new targets are. We need to actually put forward a new roadmap, identifying what are the key components that they need to be concentrating on. Again, bringing in the systematic risk, the conflicts, and the nature-based solutions, all these aspects. So I think that is really, really important. That is the third point. And the final, the key strategic point that I really want to see is the formalization of science policy and society interface. We talk about it, but it really it hasn't happened as part of the current Sendai cycle. Because the reason is, I will very briefly sort of say, the reason is because the UN system works in such a way that the information is collected through the country contact points. So the country contact points do not necessarily capture the research that is taking place in those countries. So because of that, there need to be a mechanism where we capture the science and technology knowledge to identify what the gaps are, so that that information is fed into the next cycle. So that is extremely important. Thank you very much.
Thank
Those
you,
are the
Tiziana.
4 points.
Yeah, great. Thank you. And we'll come back to some of them. David, finally, what do you think?
Well, thank you much for the opportunity to be part of this important panel discussion today. And I think we're really excited to hear about the centre's focus around how disaster resilience will be developed through innovation, data science, and through international collaboration, which strongly aligns with the work we're doing at University of Birmingham. I'm very much looking forward to engaging in the initiative. So from the perspective of the UNESCO Chair in Water Science, but also our Unitwin network and the hydrological interfaces, which Stefan Krauss at the back co-leads, we think the next global agenda around disaster risk reduction and sustainable development should be shaped not for communities, but with communities. And from our experiences across Asia, across South America, Africa, North America, and even the UK, including in Birmingham, we're sure that local communities really are at the front line of disaster risk. They're the first to experience the impacts in our areas around floods, droughts, pollution, ecosystem degradation, and water insecurity, but they're also the first to respond. So their lived experiences and also their indigenous local knowledge provides incredibly valuable insight to environmental change and resilience. Yet when we think about many of the global frameworks, they're developed very much, as you mentioned earlier, in these top-down ways, and they insufficiently engage with local communities to really think about how we can most effectively deal with these challenges. So for us, there's really 3 priorities in this area that stand out. The first is about co-production of knowledge. It's critical that communities, scientists, policymakers, and practitioners work together, and importantly, from the outset, from the problem development. And that solutions we know are more effective, and they're also more sustainable when local knowledge is combined with scientific evidence, data, and technology. Secondly, we need to think about access to data and also to early warning systems. So we have great advances, as this centre is doing, in sensors, in Earth observation, in AI tools, other digital technologies. But these innovations are really only useful when they reach down to the local level and that information is made accessible, importantly actionable, and also relevant to the communities. And thirdly, there's a real issue around developing capacity and also developing more inclusive approaches. So we need to empower young people, we need to empower women and girls, we need to make sure that the communities are involved in the whole process, from information gathering through to decision making, and resilience is stronger when all the voices are included. So one takeaway message I wanted to put, though, was that I think it's really important that we don't focus on frameworks per se, we actually focus on issues. So for example, if we use the uniting power of water, which is very much life-giving, and the work we're doing in the UNESCO Chair and the Unitwin network, we're really often there about thinking about how water is an interconnected thread all the way from disaster risk reduction to climate change adaptation through to sustainable development. And we have to place the communities at the centre of developing the solutions around these wicked water problems in ways that are equitable, locally, but also are going to provide lasting outcomes. So I think as we look beyond for 2030, it's not so much about the frameworks and the agendas themselves, it's how we actually engage with the communities in diverse, equitable, and also action-oriented ways.
Thank you, David. And this is something that's close to my heart, and quite a few of us in critical disaster studies, we published the prestige Power and Forgotten Values Disaster Studies Manifesto in 2019, which kind of reflects on exactly that, how we reciprocally and respectfully work with communities. So we'll come back to that. And let me stay with you, and I want to ask you another question. So your most cited paper offers a community perspective on the 23, very specific, 23 unsolved problems. I love a good paper title. How do we make sure that a diverse community voice is included when the solutions to the 23 problems are found?
Yeah. So I think that's a really important question, because it's as important, if you like, to think about how we go about developing methods to solve problems as the solutions themselves. And this is an academic paper, which actually Stefan Krauss is also a co-author on. So what I want to focus on is actually about diversity of the academic community, so that upstream end of how we develop the questions, because we do a lot of work on the impacts on citizens, but here really this is a case about how do we mobilize the academic community. So what the paper did, rather interestingly, is it was published back in 2019. It's been cited more than 1,000 times now. And it was much more a paper about thinking about not new scientific findings, but what do we still not know? What are the unanswered questions within hydrological science? And what we learned from that process was that, or one of the key messages is that these sort of questions themselves don't belong to any particular community, to one particular group. They don't belong to any country. They don't belong to any institution. They certainly don't belong to any particular career stage. The people that already know things, that we must be more senior. So they really are collective challenges, and they need a collective approach to owning them. So we undertook a community-orientated approach to capture some more diverse voices, and we did that in 3 ways. We first of all very, very actively thought about who was involved. So we proactively brought together people from different research backgrounds, from different disciplines, from different career stages, from different parts of the world. And it's important to note that diversity just doesn't happen by itself. You actually need to be very proactive in doing that. Secondly, we had discussions around how decisions would be made in terms of solving the problems. How can we do that in more transparent and participatory ways? So as part of the development of the paper, there's a whole series of open consultations, community-led workshops to broaden a range of different views. And thirdly, we also wanted to think about how do we recognise success in terms of achieving some of these solutions, which requires us to think in a scientific or an academic perspective in different ways. So not really about celebrating individual breakthroughs, but thinking about how do we work together as a community? How do we value community contributions around things like interdisciplinary working with stakeholders, making open data, open tools, and also thinking beyond just academic outputs to policy dimensions. So I think what we learned from this process in terms of involving communities was this was not so much about finding answers to problems, but about thinking how we develop a culture which is different and more diverse to help define the problems, to help shape some of the methods by how we might get there, but also importantly, the end to interpretive solutions.
Thank you. Thanks so much. Dina, next question is for you, something to build on David's, but something we've also been talking with you for many, many years. And this is this kind of with or for community dilemma, if you wish, right? So how do we make sure that resilient engineering is done not for, but with communities? You know, what needs to change in our approach?
Well, just building up on what David just said. Successful resilience engineering is really very much about building a resilient system. And when I'm talking about resilient system, it's not just the physical resilience, but also the social and embodied use resilience. And this system functions because people use them reliably. And they use them reliably because that practice of use is embedded in their culture. And here I'm using culture in the widest possible acknowledgement of the word. Therefore, if we look at how we go about creating resilience, so we always start from the point of view of assessing a situation, yes? And then as engineer, we say, okay, there is a problem, let's fix it. Now, why the manner in which we assess things, and we have successful way of doing this. So, for instance, assessing vulnerability, assessing other, assessing this. The best lessons learned should be as widely as possible disseminated and learned. When we are coming to the solution, then the solution needs to be brought in from a very local perspective. And that's where it's with community and not for community. Of course, some of the culture needs to be embedded into the assessment phase, because otherwise you are leaving behind important elements that might help you to find the solution. But you know, we need to. There is a very important element here of how the solution is related to the local social structure, to the local know-how, and to the local economy as well, but also to the local technology. Again, in order to get this working, we need to evolve governance so that people can make decisions when and how they need make them, but also that they can obtain resources when it's important for them to obtain them. Another thing that I would like to just mention is that by and large, we are using 19th century engineering concepts in all aspects of engineering. In structures particularly so, all our theory of structure is basically dominated by making steel work and then transfer to reinforced concrete. I'm sorry, I keep hammering that particular element, but until we really need to rethink how we design, how we use our engineering knowledge, how we use the engineering knowledge to understand the world that we have in front, and how we. So this is a fundamental, I think, role of academia. Is a fundamental role of our university, and on how we teach, what we teach, and how we disseminate that teaching.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, Dina. Really important point, because what we see is universal solutions that we know don't work, right? And this is something that hopefully is getting through. Saini, well, we continue on the roles of communities. And yesterday, day before yesterday in your presentation, you talked about risk assessments. So in your opinion, what is the main benefit of including community in the risk assessment?
If we want to have a local or community-oriented solution, I still believe that the community needs some rationale. Basically, risk assessment is the venue for the residents, local residents, to get the rationale. So, so in this way, I do think we still need to promote risk assessment, though it is still vague. Sorry to say that. I know that probably most of us are working on that. You know that risk is so complicated. So anytime we want to assess the risk, it's already a compression of the reality, right? So in this process, we're gonna neglect many information. So that's why I think the risk assessment at the community level, co-developed with the community, is so important, because they can engage in this process and point out the dimension that researchers neglected in our routine process. We kind of deal with risk assessment in quite a routine way, but that is not the universal approach. So so I think risk assessment is still very important, and the participatory approach is very important. Again, but I want to raise one question here. There are huge number of communities. It's a luxury. It's a luxury for a community to engage scientists in their risk assessment. What can we do? What can we do? I have worked for community-based risk reduction for the past 10 years, more than 10 years. In China, we have about 1 million communities. What should I do? So, well, that's also the importance to have international collaboration. We can learn from each other. You see, though I know that there is no universal way, but still, we can try to abstract a more flexible approach that can accommodate more communities.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for highlighting the multiplicity of communities, right? This is such a nebulous term, and what is community is, of course, very contested. So kind of understanding that is also virtually impossible, but very important. Delante, fantastic segue, because you've been working on the ground for as long as I've known you, and long before that, which is incredible. So much of your research has been focusing on communities in the global south in particular. But very often we see this as the lessons, I use quotation marks here, from the global north are basically being helicoptered into the global south as, again, the kind of universal solution, right? So in your opinion, what can we and our communities learn from the global south?
Good. I think that there's quite a lot that we all can learn, and of course, I say that with great pride, being a person who come from the global south in the first instance. So I have actually identified 4 key areas. It doesn't mean that there are only 4, but some very, very important points. The first one is, I suppose, the decentralizing the community-led early warning systems. Whereas in the global north, we actually rely on heavily sort of multi-million-dollar satellite systems, complex algorithms, and so on and so forth. But in countries like Bangladesh and Indonesia, there are kind of very revolutionized storm response systems where they rely on actually conveying the message through the decentralized system. So that actually works very, very well. So in that sense, I suppose the lesson to learn, the lesson that the global north can actually learn from that perspective is actually, in my perspective, that the high-tech data is actually useless if it doesn't trigger immediate trusted local action. I think that is really, really important. And also, sort of the global needs to invest in community-level social networks. In my view, I think that they're there, but they're lacking comparing to the extent of global networks that you see in the global south. So particularly in the community-led early warning system. So that is actually the first one that I want to highlight. The second one is the importance of indigenous and generational ecological knowledge. David actually touched based on that. But in my view, the modern Western DRR heavily privileges based on short-term historical data and Western scientific models. I think it is could well be a controversial statement to make, but well, I'll do it anyway. But this can result in blind spots, in my view, when unprecedented compounding climate issues occur. I think that is actually very, very true scenario. So in that sense, but comparing to that, in the global south, what has happened is that they hold centuries of localized environmental data embedded in oral histories in particular. It is absolutely fascinating to capture the oral histories through generations of people about various disaster situations. So that is a lesson to me that the global north can actually learn from the global south. Deep multi-generational observational data that holds invaluable clues needs to be captured. I think in the global north, we somewhat ignore that. The third point, very quickly, that I want to highlight is actually the mutual aid and the social capital at the ultimate safety net. For example, we actually rely on in the global north very much when a disaster occurs. We very much actually turn towards insurance in terms of actually getting benefit out of it. But in the global south, how it works is particularly in all Asian countries, Latin America countries, and so on and so forth. The main focus is actually the social capital, the trust, the tight-knit community networks. It is actually the primary survival mechanism rather than insurance. So just promoting that concept without just straight away jumping onto insurance mechanisms is actually quite a good dimension I want to highlight. So the lesson in that perspective is actually the importance of social cohesion and the neighborhood trust that to say that it will save lives. I think we can highlight that. But the fourth one, I'm not going to go into a lot of details because of the time, Ksenia, but it's the importance of low-tech nature-based solutions for infrastructure, whereas in the global north, we very much rely on linking with the engineering perspective, grey infrastructure. But why don't we actually apply the nature-based solutions? And I have seen some absolutely fantastic examples in very poor countries in the world where I have traveled. So I think, again, there are a lot of colleagues in the audience who do research in this area, but we really need to capture that in great detail. Thank you.
Super fantastic, Dante. I think particularly the point of insurance, we already see in the global north, fewer and fewer people being able to access insurance. So, that problem is definitely rapidly moving.
We were discussing that coming.
But no, what else is there to discuss, right? Amazing, thank you. And the final kind of, I guess, statement I would like you all to make, or to give us some hope for the future. Very brief statement. So to all of you, what for you is the most important, the most critical item on the agenda for disaster risk reduction and sustainable development that absolutely cannot be ignored if we are to meaningfully work with communities? Saini, I'll start with you.
May I shift to the turn? Because I really need to think about that.
Sure, yeah.
This discussion, I think I need to rethink.
You've changed mind. Then I'm Delante.
Because I've just come from the UNDRR meeting that was held in South Korea, where we actually deliberated on the use of AI in DRR. So in that sense, the statement that I want to make, and I really want to see that embedded into post the 2030 agenda is AI. I'll read it out for you. AI brings real potential and is undeniable, but it carries equal real risk that we must actively confront and are too dangerous to ignore. The answer is not to reject AI, nor the question whether AI belongs in DRR. The question is how it is used, who shapes it, and whose interest it serves. That is what my statement is.
Yeah.
Beyond 2030, which is really, really important, because I have actually said that my team, we have actually identified there are so many gaps in capturing particularly the knowledge from the global south, and I really don't think that they represent in this decision making based on the AI, but
Absolutely.
we really need to bring that equation into the debate.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, and there is particularly so little known about inclusive DRR in the context of AI.
That
So
is why I said I really want to see that happen.
Yeah. Thank you, David.
Yeah, so maybe unsurprisingly, if I have to pick one, it would be sort of around water security and resilience. Yeah. So
if you must,
water sits in the heart of many disasters and risks, of course. And as Tina mentioned, with climate change, the water-related risks are becoming more frequent and they're becoming more extreme. But importantly, we need to think about this in the context of the communities and thinking about how communities don't act as simple recipients of sort of information or management policies and practice, but they're really active partners. So I think this means that we need to sort of redouble our approaches to making investments in the ways in which we have community-centered approaches around water governance, around more inclusive early warning systems, about building local capacity, about monitoring and managing water resources using indigenous and local knowledge, and making sure that the most vulnerable groups are involved in decision making. And this requires us to recognise that resilience really isn't just about responding to disasters, it's about trying to reduce, of course, the impact before they happen, and also thinking about aspects of recovery while we protect ecosystem services as well, and consider sort of the wider implications of climate change adaptation. So for me, I think the issues are around water, they're around water security and insecurity and building resilience. But importantly, they're about how we manage water with communities to build resilience, to withstand shocks and to generate more sustainable futures. So resilience really begins at the community level, and we can't have resilience without resilient water and people systems.
Thank you. Great. Dina.
Thank you. I've already mentioned the inclusive, locally led risk governance, so I will not go, but this one to me means that we need to strictly link risk reduction to development, both from an economical financial point of view, but also from a technical point of view, by shifting the emphasis from response to preparedness. This is, I think David was also mentioning. This means that we need to create good education pipelines. So as I was mentioned before, rethinking what we educate people to, good empowerment pipelines, widening the access to different tools and different levers, but also good access to resources. The decisions should be taken locally and at community level, but the community, I was telling about the thousands of communities in China. This community needs to be networked, need to be well connected, so that we are not repeating the same errors, but also we are not continuously reinventing the wheel. And AI becomes fundamental to this possibility of actually delivering that connection if it is sufficiently locally controlled, not if it's in the hands of Microsoft and Google. So we
As I've learned today, Microsoft.
exactly. Look at how successful they are. Think about it. You know, well, otherwise, again, it becomes another monopoly.
Mhm.
It becomes another way of, imposing cultures from high level to down level instead of the other way around. Very importantly, to prevent this from happening or to try to shelter communities from this happening, we need very good legal framework.
Yeah.
And I think that the UN and the UNESCO and the UNDRR should actually work on building up these legal frameworks from the global to the local and the other way up.
Thank you. Thank you,
That's
Tina.
my-
Yeah, that's great.
I think I have my
Thanks.
answer.
Great. Yeah. Bought you a lot of time, yeah.
Thank you very much. In short, I just want to say the evidence for investment.
You're good. Yeah.
That in the end, the DRR is about investment. And then in all aspects of investment, financial investment, intellectual investment, even in the power investment. Why that's not there? We need to ask us. This is not a new idea, right? Yeah, we have been struggling with this for decades, but still not there. Why is that? Maybe it's also our responsibility. We didn't provide enough sufficient evidence to support the actual investment. Maybe there's something, at least I think IRDR have to work on that. Maybe our UNESCO chair
No pressure.
work on that.
Yeah.
Just
Super.
some thoughts.
Yeah, this is fantastic. Thank you so much. This has been really kind of a lot of food for thought, a lot for us to discuss. I have approximately 500 questions, which I will ask because you're stuck with me for next 2 days. So thank you so much. This has been wonderful. Thank you to our panel. Also, thank you to our panel. I think we win the prize for immaculate timekeeping. How about that? So the other extra stars. And with that, I believe I'm passing on to Professor Malcolm Cook to conclude this session.
Thank you. Disappear quickly.
So thank you for inviting me to say a few words just to close this off. My name is Malcolm Cook. I'm Dean at the School of Architecture, Building and Civil Engineering. This is an integrated school of the built environment and infrastructure. I'll come back to that in a moment. I apologise I wasn't here at the beginning, so it's very dangerous to ask me to sum up and I apologise for any contradictions I may slip into, but hopefully, I'm quite confident in what I've heard since I joined you an hour or so ago, really does play across what you were talking about earlier. I've chosen 3 words to summarise what I've heard this morning, and the first one is integration. This centre is about integrating research on disaster risk, and I was struck by something Professor Fang said. No single country can achieve what needs to be done, and I think the whole thing that we've heard it many times. But what are we going to do with that? And it's great to have the Institute of Advanced Studies here at Loughborough University. But it's also great to have this centre which is bringing together nations across the world. This is what we are all about. We're working together in an integrated way. This was illustrated provocatively by Dina, thank you, who said, forget about the glass, forget about the concrete. You know what I'm going to say? If you forget about the glass, you better talk to the architects because they love that. If you're going to forget about the concrete, then you better talk about the 3D concrete printing community. And they're doing fantastic things in 3D concrete. What they're doing is trying to reduce the use of concrete, make it more sustainable. So we have to talk together, don't we? Otherwise, we're not going to do this. Another word I picked up, which I'm personally very passionate about, is community. And again, I think the Institute of Advanced Studies helps us do this well, as will the centre, of course. So our planet is for people. our planet was designed for people. We've done things with it. We've built buildings. We've affected infrastructure, etc. But let's remember that community. So I was struck by, I think it's something Ksenia said, that it's about working with, not for people. Absolutely key. You know, I'm an engineer. Engineers need to hear that time and time again. I think we've got more to do on resilience. So my third word is resilience, and David picked up on this in quite a bit of what he said. Resilience, I hear resilience almost every day in the people I interact with, both in engineering and in social sciences. I think I think there's more we need to learn about resilience. What does that mean? How do we achieve it, etc. So I've got integration, community, and resilience. So I'm going to steal your words again, Dina, and leave you with an invitation to rethink how we design through integration of disciplines and international collaboration. And I think this centre has everything we need to achieve that. And I think in doing that, we can create better futures together. I'm going to close by thanking Qiuhua and his team. I know it's been a long road in terms of setting up this centre. It's fantastic to be here at the launch. Thank you. I'd like to thank Ksenia and her team. I know there's a team here at IAS who are doing fantastic things on the IT. Thank you very much. I wasn't here for any slip-ups earlier on. It all ran smoothly as well. So yeah, and of course to thank our panel just now for a very thought and provoking and focused discussion. Thank you all very much for being here. It's been a great event. Thank you.